Hello guys, yeah, welcome to another session of AWS Cloud Database Administration. My name is Martin, and yeah, so today I'll be showing you how you can create your first public RDS instance using the AWS Management Console, okay? And for us to do that, we'll be looking at some prerequisites, and after the prerequisites, we'll get it to a demo, okay? Yeah, so for the prerequisite and steps, guys, naturally, before you create your RDS instance, the very first thing is to determine the region in which you want to deploy the RDS instance. And you also determine, like, you decide on the availability zones. You also decide on the DB engine that you want to deploy, okay? The DB engine here is like, do you want commercial RDS relation database, or do you want an open source relation database, right? Because RDS gives you opportunity to deploy as many as commercial RDS relational databases like Oracle and SQL Server. Then you have also open source relational databases like Postgres, MySQL. Okay, so you have to make that decision, and after that, you have to now go to, like, you create a subnet group. Okay, and this is optional, okay, because RDS gives you opportunity to use a default subnet group. All right, then from there you create a custom parameter group. Is also optional because you also have default custom parameter groups. You also have parameter groups that are default already available for you to use. Okay, then you have to create your RDS security group. It's also optional because we do have default security groups, right, guys? I'm sure people will be wondering why I'm saying you should create other than just using the default, right? um it is recommended, like my recommendation is that it is advisable, like, always make sure you isolate your AWS environment as wide as possible, right? When I say isolating, meaning make sure you have control over all the parameters and configuration that you set in. And for you to always have control over these parameters and configurations and resources, you always need to have these resources created as custom, right? So you need to limit the use of default settings. You limit the use of default configuration, default parameters, default resources, right? Because default resources have some limited control. Okay, that's why in a production environment, make sure that you have these resources well isolated and you have full control over them, okay, in such a way that if you need any modification in the future, you won't be restricted by the default restrictions, right? Okay, so after you've created that, you now need to create your RDS instance. Then we can now connect to your RDS instance from our local PC. Okay, then from there I'm going to give you some reference documentation. Okay, and we will now delete our resources for cost optimization. Okay, so let's move to our RDS console, AWS management console, and proceed from there. Okay, so we are in our RDS management console. Okay, let's say you want to deploy an RDS instance. Okay, so the very first thing you need to search, like, you search for Aurora and RDS, or maybe you can search that in your search bar. Okay, so you hit on Aurora and RDS. So, and at this juncture, this is where like, this is the service that allows you to deploy and manage your relational databases in Amazon Web Services. Okay, so as per our steps and prerequisites, we said we need to first of all choose our region, and for me, I'll be using the Ireland as a EU West 1. Okay, and my availability zones will be EU West 1A and EU West 1B. What do I mean by that? It therefore means that in Ireland, I'll be deploying or in EUS 1, I'll be deploying my RDS instance in EUS 1A and EUS 1B. It therefore means that for high availability purposes, my RDS instance will either be in EUS 1A or EUS 1B. In case EUS 1A goes down, EUS 1B is going to take over for high availability purposes. Okay, so for us to proceed, so after that decision, we now go to subnet groups. So we need to create our subnet group, right, guys? Remember, I told you a subnet group. It is that like, it's a feature that allows you to create to add to join or to combine two or more subnets together for high availability of your RDS instance. Okay, and these subnets must reflect your availability zones that you choose. Like in my case, I have opted that my RDS instance should be in EU West 1A and EU West 1B. It therefore means that I need to create a subnet group, and this subnet group needs two subnets, one subnet in EU West 1A and one subnet in EU West 1B. Those two combined together makes what's known as the subnet group. Okay, so I will name this as Postgres subnet group. Okay, description, let me just add the same description, and I will choose my VPC. Then I need to add subnets, right? So sorry, I need to on the subnets, I first of all choose the availability zones, right? Remember I said I wanted this EU West 1A and EU West 1B. Okay, so and now I need to select subnets within this, one subnet in EU West 1A and one subnet in EU West 1B. So I'll come in here and select these two subnets. Okay, and at this juncture I can create my subnet group. Okay, so immediately my subnet group is created. I can go ahead with and creating your parameter groups. Okay, now what's a parameter group? As I previously explained, parameter group is a feature that allows you, it's an RDS feature that allows you to to have control of the functionality of your RDS instance. Like if you want to change some certain parameters like maximum configuration, like query timeout, this is where you do the changes. Okay, so RDS gives you opportunity to have this parameter group where you can now change those parameters and to reflect your customized RDS instance. Okay, and I said there are two, which is the default. Okay, and you can never modify default parameters. Okay, because these default parameters are not only for you, they are for the entire AWS region. Okay, so if you need customized parameter groups, you need to create a custom parameter group. Okay, so as a recommendation which I earlier mentioned, it's good to always have these configurations customized, so much so that you have full control over them. So we'll create our parameter group for Postgres. So I'll be creating my parameter group. So let's say um, so Postgres parameter group description. I'll bring the same description. Now, what is the engine? Remember, we want to deploy a Postgres RDS instance, so I'll choose the engine as PostgreSQL, and the engine family is the version. What version of Postgres? I love version 17. Then I'll create my okay, here you have to choose what type of parameter is that. Okay, you have to choose the parameter. Like we have two, that's the database parameter group and the cluster parameter group, right? In this case, we are going for database parameter group because cluster parameter group are exclusively for RDS instances that are clustered, right? And only Aurora, like Aurora instances, have a clustered parameters. Okay, clustered instances. So I'll create my parameter group. Okay, so you see our parameter group has been created, and the next thing we have to do is to create our custom security group, right? Yeah, it's true we can always use default security group, but for isolation purposes and having control over these parameters I set on these features, we can always create our own security group. Okay, so I'll search on security group, which is a VPC feature, EC2 feature. And yeah, so you can see that we already have one default security group, right? Yeah, we always use this one, but for the sake of my explanation, which I said, it's good to have this created so you can you're going to have a good environment. You create your security group. So I will say this is an RDS security group, RDS for Postgres security group. Okay, so I'll describe it. and select my VPC as a default VPC. And yeah, at this juncture we can create the security group. So yeah, the security group has been created and we are ready to deploy our RDS, our first public accessible RDS instance. Okay, so we go back to Aurora and RDS. So in the RDS console, we now go to databases. Okay, and we can now successfully create our database. So when you go to RDS, like create database, you have two options like standard create and easy create. Standard create, like it gives you the opportunity to outline and list features that you want, but easy creates like RDS creates the RDS instance rapidly for you, like just few clicks. Okay, so you have to choose your engine options, and for our deployment, we'll go for Postgres. Okay, and after the engine, after the engine options, we now go to the version. Since we are dealing with Postgres, need to choose which version of Postgres. So for our case, we'll go for Postgres 17. Okay, so I'll select Postgres 17. I'll just go with the latest version. Okay, and enable RDS extended support, guys. This is a very important feature that you need to understand, because it's very crucial sometimes when the applications have been configured to use specific major versions of Postgres, and maybe AWS deprecates that specific version. So if you know that maybe your application has been configured to specifically use a specific major version of your RDS instance, um, maybe the version is the major version will be deprecated very soon, and for you to be able to continue using that major version, you need to enable extended support. Okay, this is payable, but you'll be able RDS will allow you to keep using that deprecated major version without any problem. Okay, and yes, you will need to now upgrade after the extended support date attains. Okay, yeah, so we need to choose the templates. Are we creating this RDS design for production or for development or for free tier? Okay, so for this case, we'll go for development and testing. I will need to now choose our availability and durability. Now, if you want to go for multi-AZ DB cluster deployment or multi-AZ instance, okay, this for high availability, or a single AZ, right? With a single AZ, guys, you need to know that a single AZ, you have just a single instance in a single availability zone, right? So if there's an issue with your RDS instance, obviously your RDS instance is going to be restarted, and you're going to kind of the SLA for you to have that instance up and running is a bit higher. Could take some minutes, but with multi-AZ DB instance and multi-AZ cluster, the SLA is in few seconds. Like you can have your RDS instance up and running within like maximum will be 1 minute. Okay, yeah. So for this purpose, we'll go with single AZ. Okay, yeah. So now let's our RDS instance identifier. So let's go for RDS Postgres DB. Okay, that's my identifier. Okay, now for master username, I'll set my master username. For credentials can be managed using AWS secret, or credentials could be managed using AWS like self-managed, right? So for this demo, we'll go for self-managed secret. So master password. So I need to confirm the master password. Okay. Then I proceed with the instance class selection. What kind of instance class? And this is where you need to determine the compute resources of your instance, right? That's why we say you select the instance class, right? What kind of instance class do you want? Do you want an instance with higher memory? Do you want an instance with average, like this average performance in memory and compute as CPU? Do you want a bustable instance like for like cost saving? Okay, so you can always go choose your best option, memory optimized instances or standard, which is it has an average performance between compute and memory. Then you have bus stable for cost optimization. For this demo we go for cost optimization bus stable instances. Okay, so I'll choose dbt4g large, or maybe um, let's go for medium. Okay, with medium you have two vCPUs, 4 GB of RAM and 2085 bandwidth of network. Okay, then for storage you need to choose what storage you want, is it GP2 or GP3. Okay, and allocated storage I can go for 20. And yeah, the next thing now is storage auto scaling. Okay, this one is very essential for managing storage, guys, because storage increases as you constantly use your RDS instance. Storage is increasing, and remember in my case I choose 20 gigabyte. If this 20 gigabyte, if storage get filled up to 20 gigabyte, and if auto scaling was not configured, my RDS instance will have performance issue, and I will need to come in and increase the storage manually, right? But if you enable auto scaling, when the allocated storage gets to its maximum, storage is going to be increased automatically by RDS. Okay, but for this demo we'll just uncheck that. Okay, then for connectivity, this is where we need to now send in the network connectivity into our RDS instance. Okay, so if you want to connect to this RDS instance, let's say it was an instance in a private subnet, and you want to connect to this RDS instance using an EC2 instance within the AWS environment, you can select connect to using an EC2 instance. But for this case, our RDS instance is in a public subnet, meaning we don't need a bastion host or a jump server. Okay, so I will select our IPv4, select our virtual private network, then a security group, we select our security group, right, which we created. Then a public access, remember our goal today is to create a public accessible RDS instance. Okay, so we're going to check public access. Okay, guys, this is not recommended. Okay, just that this is for it's just for study purposes, and this is in a production environment. Make sure your RDS instance is never in the public, it's never publicly accessible, right? All right, and in my next lesson I'll also show you how to create a private RDS instance, and how you can authenticate to the RDS instance using a bastion host or a jump server. Okay, then security groups, you can create use an existing security group or create a new security group, right? Since we had already created our security group, you can simply just select that security group you created. Okay, yeah, and we proceed with the availability zone, right? Remember we had our subnet group that was made up of two availability zones, EU West 1A and EU West 1B, and this subnet groups had two this subnet group has two subnets, one in US, that's EU West 1A, and one in EU West 1B. But for now, I want my RDS instance to be deployed currently in EU West 1B. So I'll select EU West 1B, and RDS proxy is not necessary for now. Then we go to additional configuration, where you can change the port of the Postgres if you don't mind. Like if you want to change the port for security purposes, because by default everybody knows that the Postgres port is 5432. Okay, so you can change the port if you want. You can add tag, then you choose the authentication approach, maybe password and IAM authentication, then password and Kerberos if you don't mind. Then for database monitoring, you will have to choose between database insight advanced and database insight standard. Okay, now with database insight standard, with a 7 days retention period, it is free. When like enabling, when you, also with the performance insight enable, this is free. But if you choose database insight advanced, it is payable. Okay, so and for this case, my engine version, which is my database instance class, which is that bustable instance as T4 T4 medium, does not support database insight. So I will not bother myself enabling it, because even if you enable it, it will not work, because the instance class I have chosen, maybe I go and show you again, the instance class I have chosen, which is DBT4 G medium does not support performance insight. Okay, so I will need not no there won't be any need for me to even enable it, so I'll just uncheck that. Okay, then enhanced monitoring is another monitoring tool that enables you to monitor the operating system. Okay, so you can always enable that if you need. Then you can also export log in the RDS log group to have detailed activity of your activity that is ongoing in your RDS instance. Okay, then DevOps group is like another RDS feature that enables you, or that if you enable it, RDS will constantly check your instance and detect abnormalities, then give you recommendation. Okay, then you have database configuration. This is where you have to set your maybe our database, our first initial database, and our parameter group. Okay, so initial database, let's go for test db. Okay, and our parameter group, right? Remember I said there is a default parameter group that you can always use, but we had already created our parameter group, so we choose our parameter group. Then enabling automated backups, you can enable that, but I don't need that. You enable encryption, I need that. Maintenance, so if you want to enable auto minor version upgrade such a way that RDS does the minor version upgrade for you, you can enable that. For this case, I do not need that. And for your maintenance windows, you can always choose your maintenance window, or go for no preference. For this case, I do not need that. Then enabling delete protection is another level of protection where when you enable this, like your RDS instance cannot be deleted, like cannot just be deleted. If you want to delete this, you need to first of all modify the RDS instance and uncheck enable delete protection. Okay, so it avoids your RDS instance from accidental deletion. Okay, yeah, so when you're done with that, you can now create your database. Okay, so this is going to take some time, and I will get back to you after the RDS instance has been created. Okay, guys. Okay, so as you can see, our RDS instance is in available status. Okay, so yeah, for today I'll be showing you how you can authenticate to this RDS instance from your local PC. Okay, so when you click on the RDS instance, you're going to see various tabs. You have connectivity and security, monitoring, logs and events, configurations, and I mean, but for the sake of today's video, we'll be looking at connectivity and security, right? So for us to connect to that RDS instance, first we need a host name, which is the RDS endpoint. Okay, and we need a port, we need a master password, and a master database which we created. Okay, so I'll copy this endpoint, and we know that the port is 5432. Okay, but now let's consider that I have all these credentials available for me to connect, right? I wouldn't be able to authenticate to this RDS instance because of what? Because of firewalls, right? Because this RDS instance has a firewall known as a security group, right? If you check our security group, let's check the security group. Yeah, if you check to see that our security group which we created, and if you look at it critically, you will see that inbound rule, that there is no inbound rule, right? Like nothing has been accepted. It therefore means that by default everything has been rejected. So even if you have the endpoint, the port, the all the credentials, you won't still be able to authenticate to this RDS instance because no inbound rule allow access to that RDS instance. Okay, so we need to we need to configure this. We need to add an inbound rule to allow access to our RDS instance using the port which we configured. Okay, and the protocol TCP, right? Okay, so to do that, you on the still on the security group, you click on edit inbound rules. Okay, then you go to add rules, and here you need to choose the protocol, right? Protocol. Let's go for Postgres. The protocol is Postgres, and you see, sorry, you choose a type which is Postgres. The protocol is TCP, and the port range is 5432, right? This is by default, like it picks automatically picks the default port range, right? But if you had a different port number for your Postgres instance during the creation, you will not use Postgres type, you instead use custom TCP. Okay, when you use a custom TCP, you are able to write any port number which you specify by your choice. Okay, but for this case, remember our port was 5432, so we use the default. Okay, now the source, we now need to choose a source. If you have an IP address, which like a static IP address, which you know, you can use the static IP address by selecting custom, then you write the IP address. If you want to allow access from anywhere, any source that is IP version 4, you can select anywhere IP version 4. So anybody who has these database credentials, RDS credentials, will be able to connect to this RDS instance from anywhere. Okay, from anywhere with IP version 4. Same thing with IP version 6. If you allow this, anybody from anywhere, from the internet, from anywhere, can connect if he has those credentials. But for security reasons, it's always recommended to use, like, can use my IP. So this firewall is going to allow only access, authentication access to your RDS instance from your specific IP. Okay, so yeah, so for the sake of this video, I will choose my IP. Okay, so I'll select my IP, and I will save it. Okay, yeah, so after saving that, you'll see that at least there's an inbound rule already that allows the TCP protocol authentication to your RDS Postgres instance. Okay, from the port, that is the port 5432. Okay, and the IP is also there, also indicated from this specific IP. Is that okay? So at this juncture, we can say, yeah, we are ready to authenticate to our RDS instance from our local PC, because you have used your local IP address. Okay, so I'll be moving to my next screen to show you how you can authenticate using first the local command line interface. That's the Windows command line interface. Or you can also authenticate or to your RDS instance, or connect to your RDS instance, Postgres instance, using the pgAdmin. Okay. Okay, so the very first thing I will do is that I'll go to Aurora and RDS to copy the host name. That's the RDS endpoint. Okay, I'll select databases. I'll select this my specific database, and I will copy the endpoint, right? Copy the endpoint, and the next thing I will do is that I will go to my Windows command line interface, and so in my Windows command line interface, I am going to paste this. Yeah, so you can see in my Windows command line interface, I have pasted this command. So you have the very first command, like the executable, is a psql. Psql is a binary, is an executable that you can use to connect to your Postgres instance using the command line. Okay, so it's called psql. This psql, I had already installed it in my local PC. Okay, so you can always install this in the Postgres Postgres documentation online. Okay, just go get it, get the installer, and you download and install in your PC. Okay, so you hit on like psql. The second thing here is the host. Okay, and you have psql, then you have the host. The host is the RDS instance endpoint. Remember, guys, is the RDS instance endpoint. Then the port is port 5432. The user is SA. That's my master user. Then the D, which stands for database, is testdb. Okay, when you have that, 1 minute. Yeah, so as I was explaining, if you see, the very first executable command is the psql, that is going to help you authenticate using the command line. The H stands for the host, which is the RDS endpoint. Okay, just to repeat, so we have psql, okay, which is the executable. Okay, you can always install this from the Postgres download installer. All right, from the Postgres installer, you can always install it from there. Okay, the host is the RDS endpoint, and the port is 5432. The user is SA. That's my user, which I identified. Then the database is testdb. Okay, so with this, you can always authenticate to your RDS Postgres instance using the command line interface. Okay, so I'll hit on enter and I'm asked the password. So I'll bring in my password which I created. Okay, and I hit on enter, and as you can see, I am connected to my RDS Postgres instance, and I can start running some queries. Postgres command. Maybe if you want to check the number of users, I just press du. Okay, okay. See the number of users in my Postgres cluster. Okay, so yeah, so yeah, so the next thing I will show you how to connect to authenticate to your RDS Postgres instance using pgAdmin. Okay, pgAdmin is a graphic user interface that you can use to connect to your authenticate to your RDS instance. Okay, so I had already installed pgAdmin. You just need to go to servers. Okay, and you register a server. Okay, you go to register server. Like you can give the server name Postgres. Okay, now you go to connection. Now the host or the host name or address, it should be the RDS endpoint. Okay, so you paste the RDS endpoint, and the port is there. The maintenance database, that's the master database. You can go test db, and username, remember your master username. Kerberos is not allowed. Then the password, you bring in the password which you created. Okay, you can save password. Okay, with this you then save the connection. Okay, if you can, as you can see, the connection has been saved, and yeah, so the connection has been saved and propagated properly. So if you expand, you're going to see databases. If you expand, you can see the test db which you created. Okay, it's a test db which you created. Maybe if you want to maybe make some sort of a query, you can maybe go to the query tool. Okay, and we are in test db. This is our query tool where you can start running queries, maybe doing some select statement or create database. Okay, so in our query editor we can start performing basic queries, like let's say you want to create a table. You go for create table. Okay, so you go to create table and open your bracket. So we need to name maybe table id. Okay, table id and constraint, let's say default, or let's say not null. Let's bring in a constraint that's not null, and maybe the second column. Let's get our second column. Let's go for name. Okay, and the constraint maybe, or the data type, let's go for variable character. That's variable character. Okay, yeah. So after that, you can just hit on that, and you create a table. Okay, and to create a table, you select the query and you go to execute script. Okay, sorry, it's an error somewhere. Yeah, the error here is okay, create table id not no. Okay, the variable character here, I didn't specify the variable character, right? We need to specify the variable character len. So let's say variable character let's say variable character 50. Okay, variable character 50, and yeah, we can now execute the statement. Select the statement, and we execute. Okay, still having an issue. Let me correct. Yeah, yeah, create table. Oh, sorry, I forgot to write a table name. Let's say test table. Okay, Go with test table, right? So create table, test table, ID, variable character. Yeah, that's fine. So we can execute the query again. So I execute. Ah, same thing. Yeah, let me check this. What happened? Table ID. Okay, the data type has not been indicated. Okay, so the ID, I want it to be integer, so I'll go for int. Then the constraint not null. Okay, yeah, so let me run again and see. Okay, so the query has been executed. Yeah, so yeah guys, so you can see I have shown you how to create your public RDS instance and authenticate using um, the command line interface and also using the pgAdmin. Okay, in my next video I'll be showing you how to create a well secured RDS instance in a private subnet and how you can use a bastion host like also called the jump server and to authenticate to that RDS instance. Okay, so as usual guys, I've decided to be making these videos to communicate to contribute to the community and to kind of share the little you have been learning so far as working with Amazon Web Services. Okay, so as I introduced myself in my first video, my name is Martin and I'm a database cloud support engineer for Amazon Web Services. And yeah, so you can always subscribe to my channel so much so that immediately I upload a video you'll be notified. And remember guys, in case while using AWS services or like especially databases, you encounter an error or a problem or you need me to intervene, please just hit me in the chat and I will reply. Okay, I may upload a video for the same or I will reply you directly. Okay, all right guys, see you, ciao, take care, bye bye.